please. If everybody could first rise and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody to the June Borough Board meeting. We have two presentations tonight. First, we have the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, who is going to give us a presentation called Where We Live NYC. And then next up after that, we will have the New York City Department of City Planning that will be giving us a presentation as well on for the new hotel motels in the M1 districts. Also too, just so that the board members know, I did put it on your, I did put it on the email that I sent out. We are going to have a July meeting because we have another city planning issue that is going to present itself. We're gonna have to talk about when we wanna do that because the first Wednesday of the month is July 4th. So obviously we can't keep to that time frame. So we're gonna have to figure out what works for everybody. Maybe we can even do something during the day. So our friends that schlep all the way here don't have to come, you know, at the end of their day. But so let's move it right along. HBD, you're up.
Do folks mind if I actually just sit here?
No, go right ahead.
Cool. So my name is Michael Sandler. I'm the Director of Neighborhood Planning at HPD, and we're here tonight to present on a new initiative that we're rolling out called Where We Live NYC. I'm joined tonight by Lulu Michelson and Maya from our Intergov team. And so what we're going to talk about tonight in a very short presentation, we're going to start by giving you a little context on, we're talking about Where We Live NYC. It's the city's comprehensive fair housing planning process. So we'll start by giving a little context on what exactly we mean when we say fair housing. We'll talk about what we're hoping to achieve through the process, and then how we plan to engage with New York City residents and Staten Island residents as part of this effort, and then we'll have time for your questions. So first, when we say fair housing, what does that mean? The Federal Fair Housing Act, which has its roots in civil rights era activism of the 60s, was created to protect people against discrimination when they're renting, buying, or securing financing for any housing. The Act specifically prohibits discrimination based on these 7 protected classes: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, and the presence of children. New York State and New York City's human rights laws include additional protections based on things like your source of income, age, sexual orientation, and military status, to give a few examples of some of the other protections. And the Fair Housing Act also requires that jurisdictions who receive federal funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development affirmatively further the Act's goals, but until pretty recently it wasn't really clear what affirmatively furthering the Fair Housing Act's goals were, which brings us to 2015. In 2015, the Obama administration issued new rules that articulated what the responsibility of jurisdictions was to affirmatively further fair housing, or what wonks like me call AFFH. So HUD said that jurisdictions, whether that's a city, town, county, or state, must do more than simply prevent discrimination. They must take affirmative, proactive steps to overcome segregation and disparities in accessing opportunity. And so what this means is, and this is a quote from the rule, which is replacing segregated living patterns with truly integrated and balanced living patterns, and transforming racially and ethnically concentrated areas of poverty into areas of opportunity. So in general, HUD outlined a range of strategies that you can do to achieve this, that fall into 2 categories, which we refer to as a balanced approach to affirmatively furthering fair housing. So this means we have to look at mobility strategies, which is how can we create or preserve affordable housing in areas that are high opportunity, which means they have access to good schools, transit, healthy environments. And then on the other hand, we can also consider place-based investments, which means increasing opportunity through broad community revitalization efforts in areas that lack those types of resources. So what is this initiative? So Where We Live NYC is a comprehensive fair housing planning process. We know that opportunity is not shared equally by all New Yorkers, and we know that where we live has real impacts on our access to jobs, education, safety, public transit, and positive health outcomes. And so Where We Live NYC is our process to study and understand and address patterns of residential segregation and concentrated poverty and how these patterns impact New Yorkers' access to opportunity. This is a HUD requirement that we must undertake every 5 years, and it will culminate in the release of a public report in 2019 that includes measurable goals and strategies. So as part of Where We Live NYC, HPD will be leading a public engagement process that we've broken out into 3 phases. Right now we're in what we're calling the learn phase on the left. This phase really sets the groundwork for this process. It's an opportunity to understand what fair housing challenges look like in New York City, engage with the data, and identify contributing factors. And it's taking place this spring and this summer. Starting in the fall, we'll enter into what we're calling the create phase, where this is an opportunity to surface ideas for policy solutions based on what we've learned in that first phase. And it'll take place this fall. And then in 2019, we'll be in this finalized phase, where the city will be coming back and sharing an initial draft policy framework based on what we've learned, taking into account what we learned from residents, stakeholders, government partners like yourselves, and extensive data analysis. And then this will be the public's opportunity to report, to let us know if we got it right and make final suggestions before we complete the report, which will be issued in the fall of 2019. Our engagement strategy involves learning directly from New York City residents through focus group style meetings and large public workshops. We've also convened a stakeholder group comprised of community leaders, service providers, academic researchers, and advocates who are meeting to provide their professional perspective on some of these issues. And then finally, we'll be engaging with elected officials, community boards, and members of the NYCHA Resident Advisory Board throughout this process, which is why we're here tonight. So when we talk to New York City residents, we have 3 broad guiding questions that we want to know from residents, which is first, why do New Yorkers live where they live? Well, we want to understand what factors contribute to housing choices or the lack of choice for some New York City residents. And then we want to understand, how does where a New Yorker live impact their life and their household's access to opportunity? And finally, what solutions do New Yorkers want to see? We want to know what people like and don't like about their current housing situation or their neighborhood and how it could be better. And so the heart of this effort is these focus group style conversations that we're calling community conversations. They'll be with sort of small groups of a specific population, community, or neighborhood. And we want to better understand how these issues play out on the ground in people's lives, with a focus on populations that are protected by fair housing law, those different protected classes that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. So for example, our outreach might focus on NYCHA residents, holders of housing choice vouchers, Section 8 vouchers, immigrants, people with disabilities, seniors, LGBTQ individuals, or individuals with different racial, ethnic, or religious backgrounds. These sessions will be led in partnership with community-based organizations around the city, and with the help of a consultant, Hester Street, which is a nonprofit technical assistance provider. We're also working with the Interaction Institute for Social Change, which is a racial justice firm, who will be helping to ensure that we're creating a space that have meaningful and productive conversations about how fair housing issues and how that might relate to race and discrimination. And then we'll be launching a website in a few weeks, hopefully, that will include a downloadable version of these community conversations. And so any New Yorker or any group that's interested in doing it can download this tool and take part in the process. We'll also have project updates, fair housing resources, and an opportunity to share feedback directly on that website. Finally, in terms of public engagement, we'll be doing large public workshops starting in late 2019 and in late 2018 and going into 2019. These will be large public events that give us an opportunity to report back on what we've learned in these community conversations, and then educate the general public on fair housing issues and work with the attendees to prioritize goals and strategies that will go into the final report. So the final report, what is that? So this is going to culminate in a pretty extensive public document. My sense is it will be hundreds of pages long, a very big document, which will bring together all the different pieces that we've discussed, so the data and the policy analysis, understanding how segregation and concentrated poverty work in New York City, a summary of what we've learned through public engagement, and then concrete goals and strategies with a plan for tracking and accountability. And so when we say goals and strategies, what does that mean? So just a reminder about that balanced approach, focusing on both housing choice and making sure that New Yorkers have a choice in where they can live, and then place-based investments to ensure that all neighborhoods have equal access to opportunity. They'll likely include some new policies, and then we expect them to focus on also making tweaks to existing policies and programs to better address the needs of New Yorkers. So that this feels a little more tangible, I'll share a few examples of policies that other cities have implemented through similar processes. So in Philadelphia, they're expanding support for Section 8 voucher holders to promote access to high opportunity areas both in Philadelphia and in the larger region, including the suburbs, with a focus on households that have limited English proficiency and households with children. In New Orleans, strategies included identifying vacant land in underserved communities to create not just affordable housing, but also things like food access, recreation, and green space to improve opportunity in those areas. And then in LA, also in New Orleans, they're developing a formal plan to assess how banks are spending or meeting their obligations under the Community Reinvestment Act. And then in LA, their plan included strategies to improve fair housing enforcement, like strengthening protections for transgender individuals and undocumented immigrants. So we are forging ahead with this process at a moment where HUD and the federal government have not shown the same commitment as the Obama administration has to these types of issues. We're hoping to leverage this process to connect with other cities to address challenges or that cities that face similar challenges to New York, high-cost cities where things like gentrification and displacement are very salient. And ultimately, we see this as a unique opportunity to move away from discussing, individual, I think you guys are probably accustomed to HPD coming and talking about an individual development, or DCP coming and talking about a rezoning. We see this as a way to step back, think about how our neighborhoods are set up and who's living in our neighborhoods, and how the legacy of segregation impacts us today. So just quickly on next steps, and then I'll take your questions. We're launching our website this month. We'll be launching these focus group style community conversations starting in July and going through the early fall with public workshops starting after that, and again, final report in the fall of 2019. And I think that's it for me. Happy to take questions.
The public workshops, will they be taking place in every borough, every community board? How are those going to be?
Certainly not every community board. We see there being about 5 to 7 public workshops, and we'd like them to take place all over the city. So
Okay.
yes, we'd like them to
In
take place
Staten Island as well?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
Are you assessing zoning in this study?
So this project is a partnership with NYCHA and the Department of City Planning. I don't think we're looking at changing any zoning districts through this study, but we're looking at how
housing is zoning.
Right. So we will be looking at how zoning impacts these issues. Zoning is certainly a major issue in this.
It's the major.
Will you be specifically coming to a community board, or are you just going to have public meetings in schools somewhere? Or, I mean, what do you see as getting this information out and the input from the community?
So we're happy to come speak to community boards that are interested. We don't plan on going to all 59 community boards. We do plan on having public events throughout the city.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'd like to see you in Community Board 3.
So public workshops is going to be 5 to 7. If that's the point where you're doing community engagement to gather information, how else are you doing data collection outside of public workshops?
So there's these community conversations, which will be small focus groups. Sorry, the sirens are loud. The community conversations are taking place throughout the city. We're partnering with a number of community CBOs to host them all around the city.
Okay,
And so we're
that wasn't
imagining
So then what kind
around
of-
50 of those.
50. Okay.
So a large number of those, and then folks can also download this toolkit and do the community conversations themselves and send us feedback based on
These
that.
community conversations started already?
No, they'll be starting in July.
And how will we find out about it?
The website, yeah.
So
We're
we have
happy to
to-
report back.
Will
you
there
have
be
to search for the
notification?
information?
Like,
Yeah, thank you.
the
So these are-
electeds aren't, and the community boards aren't going to be notified?
So these are, the idea, these are really complicated issues that they'll be talking about at the community conversations. We're talking about race and discrimination and people's experiences, and so they're designed to be small and intimate. And so they're not big, large public events, and so we'll be holding them with CBOs from around the city with the constituents of those CBOs. And so trying to reach different types of New Yorkers, seniors, people of different racial backgrounds, people of different religion, and understand their experiences in the housing market in a student setting. And so we'll be working with those CBOs to figure out where and how to host those meetings.
Well, I think, maybe to Marie's point too, it'd be good if you can let us know how you're coordinating those community conversations and with whom.
Mhm.
We know our communities
Because
very
that's
well.
it. We know the different community-based organizations, and a lot of times the CBOs come to us they ask us for social media to get their messages out,
Mhm.
because they have a limited,
Yeah.
groups that they appeal to where, we have more universal, contacts and everything.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm not speaking for the borough president, but I think you should deal with the borough president on this issue. And where to go and how to go and be involved in Staten Island, because too often, you'll go to Central Home, Brownsville, Flatbush, East New York, and we'll find out about it in the newspaper. So I think you should be involved with the borough president and get a widespread,
Well, like I said, not just us, like Chris said, all the electeds, we
yeah,
can
well,
make
well,
some
I was just using that
suggestions,
as-
yeah.
Right, exactly. I was not excluding anybody, I'm just saying, generally,
That's the website.
the elected should be the people who are involved in this process.
So just to clarify as well, this is our, for the project, as Michael I know is gonna also
Okay.
share some cards, and we're like happy to be
Okay,
responsive and working with you guys. I think part of why we're here today is to include you early in the process and let you know that this is happening. We haven't started our outreach yet. We're in the process of selecting CBOs, and we are open to suggestions from you guys, so we can follow up with you after via email
Okay.
to get suggestions for like the local partners that we should be working with here. So those community conversations, again, are like kind of qualitative data collection opportunities. And then the public workshops, which are these larger events that will be kind of where we share back what we learned and do more visioning and forward-looking conversations, will be larger public events, and we
Okay.
will definitely lean on you at that point to get people in the room for those.
okay.
And
Anybody
maybe to
else?
find the room.
Yes, I mean, find the room.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for
Great.
coming.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
You don't
Okay.
want to say that, do you?
Len, do you have a,
We do,
okay, do you want to start setting up while there?
absolutely.
Thanks,
So
everyone.
we can move right along?
You guys need to do anything here?
Intro?
Okay, yeah, if you want to get
Yeah,
started.
I just want to introduce Danny Vera from my office, who's going to actually make the presentation. He's been tracking this proposed text amendment, citywide proposed text amendment. He's been tracking it on Staten Island and all the community boards. I know that we made a brief community board 2 has already voted this out already with recommendations. CB1 had their second briefing at Land Use Committee last night, and CB2
If I could just interrupt for 1 second. I mean, we're hearing all this because there's a dreadful fire down the street at the Dunkin' Donuts and the pharmacy. I don't know what level of fire it's going on. There's a tremendous amount of smoke. So we don't know what kind of damage it's going on or if anybody is being injured. So this is all happening in real time, and I'm just getting these texts, so just letting folks know.
Just went that way down to One-Way Street.
Yeah. When I was walking over, I could see there was activity, but between all the movie trucks and whoever else the heck was on the street, I figured it had something to do with that. But no, actually, there's an enormous fire going on right now.
Hopefully everybody's okay.
Save the donuts.
CB3.
And CB3, I know we made a brief presentation at Land Use Committee last month, and going back, I guess we're going to the full board later this.
We're going back to land use, actually, next week.
Right, what occurred, from my understanding, land use tabled it,
Right.
had several issues which I will raise this evening, which you're familiar with since you were there, and they will present to the general board at the end of the month.
Right.
So you're meeting with land use this month, and then at the end of the month,
With the full board.
with the full board will
Right, right,
be
right.
voting on this.
Yes,
Right.
right.
Yeah,
We'll be
typically-
there to answer questions
Right.
and stuff.
Yeah, typically we would come to the borough board after those votes, but we scheduled tonight, so we're
No,
here tonight.
right, of course.
So, aware that those conversations are still happening.
You guys ready?
Yep,
Okay,
whenever you're
great.
ready.
Yes.
Awesome, great. So, great introduction there, Len, so presentation's over. But, so yes, my name is Danny Vieira, I'm with the Department of City Planning, and I'm here to present a zoning text amendment that the Department of City, the city is proposing. So this zoning text amendment would require a special permit for any new hotel development in light manufacturing or M1 districts throughout the city. So currently constructing a hotel in M1 districts is as of right. It doesn't require any city planning commission approvals. And sort of as a result of that, we've been seeing some challenges on a neighborhood and land use perspective around the city. So by requiring a special permit for any new hotel built within these M1 districts, there'll be more comprehensive review, more specifically like a public review, that would occur to assure the needs of the community that they're being understood. So we've seen a lot of new hotels open up in these M1 districts, and I'll go into a little bit about that information a little further on. Since 2010, and we understand there's been some current concerns from the communities. So we share those concerns and about balancing neighborhood growth, and that's why we're taking action now. So a little bit of context. I don't know if you guys recall, but this initiative actually came out of the mayor's 10-point industrial action plan, which was a plan to sort of identify ways to encourage industrial job growth and make sure there's opportunities for industries to expand, specifically within IBCs. But what we found was, while we were seeing this issue in M1 districts, industrial business zones doesn't really cover all those M1 districts, so we decided to just expand that a little further. And this map just indicates where those IBCs are and where the M1 districts are located. So to put things into also context in regards to the existing tourism and hotel industry in New York City, over the past 10 years, New York City's tourism industry has boomed with a 47% increase in the number of visitors. This has resulted in a strong demand for hotel rooms and then consequently hotel development. I think one important thing to note is that this growth in hotel development has occurred throughout the city, where, for instance, there's actually most of the hotels that exist today in Staten Island were built since 2010. And even today, there's proposed developments, hotel developments in St. George and expansions on the West Shore. So today, only 13% of existing rooms are in M1 districts, while 30% of hotel rooms are under construction citywide that are located in M1 districts. And this, illustrates a growing number of hotel developments in this particular area. This map just illustrates the existing hotels, but also the ones that are under construction and pre-construction. So these M1 districts where we've seen substantial hotel growth are widely mapped throughout the city, and this is what this map indicates here. Today, these areas very much vary in character. While some of them actually retain, an industrial character, there's others that are more commercial, where they have retail and office mixed-use sort of activity going on. So with New York City's unprecedented growth in population and the economy, there's been increased competition for land, and many of these M1 districts have actually become one of the last opportunities to the city. Further, as the economy shifted away from a traditional manufacturing towards a more service-oriented economy, the development trends in these M1 zones have changed as well, and they've been very important in accommodating the growth in the city during this time. But the thing is, the rules that govern really the zoning that governs these M1 districts have changed very little since 1961. So it's, we're trying to revisit this at this time and consider them with the recent hotel development. So there's a couple interesting things that we found throughout our research, in particular with the hotel developments, and really relating to how there's a competitive advantage for these hotel developments in these M1 districts. So while unattended, things such as bulk regulations, for example, parking requirements and floor area ratios, tend to give hotels a competitive advantage in these M1 districts. So as illustrated in this slide, you can have a tall building compared to the surrounding uses because they have the ability to meet the entire floor area on the site, and the height and setback regulations allow for more feasible developments. Along with that, hotels tend to not require such a large floor plates, and they could be developed on smaller lots. And also, parking and loading requirements tend to be more generous in hotels, for hotels in M1 districts, making them even more attractive for hotels. Something that we've become aware of is that, because of the advent of many hotel developments in these M1 districts, this tends to create potential conflicts between hotels and the surrounding land uses in that area, specifically these M1 districts. So they could vary based on the M1 district, as I mentioned before. M1 districts tend to have different characters. For example, in the ones that are more active industrial areas, where there's noise, truck traffic, loading, pollution, and other things that would really conflict with hotels. For example, street loading and open manufacturing uses could create conflicts between pedestrian traffic going to and from the hotel. And also you can see from these just illustrations that they tend to be out of context within the neighborhood. On the other hand, in more mixed use areas, hotels don't usually present the same direct conflicts, as they typically have less industrial use and more retail and offices. That being said, such hotel development can detract from other opportunities for other uses in the area that may be more in line with what the community has, what the community needs for that specific area. So for all these reasons, the city is proposing a zoning text amendment to establish a city planning commission special permit for new hotels, motels, and motels in M1 districts. The tourism industry is definitely essential to New York City's economy and has had a positive impact on jobs and supporting other sectors, including restaurants and cultural institutions. And it's really for this reason why it would be as practical to apply the special permit for all new hotel developments. So for M1 districts, there would be a case-by-case site-specific review process that would let everyone consider the appropriateness of new hotels. So in more actively industrial areas, they would, the special permit allow the city planning commission to look at that and say, like, is it in context with those existing uses? What is the potential impact of a hotel on the surrounding traffic and pedestrian, vehicle and pedestrian traffic? And in the mixed-use areas, really evaluating if growth could be directed towards other sectors to achieve neighborhood growth. So I'll pause kind of momentarily at this slide, which illustrates where the M1 districts that would be subject to the special permit. So the orange areas are, like I said, where the areas where if a new hotel development came in here, they would be subject to that special permit. You can see a lot of them along the West Shore, but also along the North Shore. The blue areas are indicated where today hotel development is as of right and will continue to be as of right if this text amendment is enacted. And I will be happy to go back to these slides, but I have each one by the community district. We could jump back to them following the presentation if need be. So in the areas covered by this proposal, the new hotels will be only permitted by a city planning commission special permit. And in doing so, the commission must meet these findings. So in any special permit application, it's a discretionary action where the city planning commission will analyze what the proposal is, look at the land use application in relation to these specific findings, and then we'll act upon and make a decision based upon that. This includes that the proposed site plan for the project shows that it will minimize potential conflicts between hotels and adjacent uses, that the hotel will not cause undue traffic and congestion in the area, and that the proposed project will not impair the character of the surrounding area. Happy to jump back to the slide if you need to. So just a little bit more background about this proposal too, as far as like what happens to existing hotels and any ones that are currently in the works. So hotels existing on the date of adoption will consider to be a conforming use. Any enlargement of a hotel use that wishes to increase the floor area by 20% or more would require a city planning commission special permit. There's some vesting provisions in place. A hotel development that has a building permit or a partial permit issued by the Department of Buildings by the date of referral would be a vested one. From the date of adoption, these projects would have will have 3 years to either complete construction or receive a certificate of occupancy. So this kind of goes into the process of a special permit. So if this proposal is enacted, every new hotel in the M1 district would have to apply for this special permit, and it would be a ULURP application that would include community board review, borough president review, and city planning commission review as well. And usually the city council would vote on it. The total length of this process is usually 2 years. This slide gives you some insight to where we are with this proposal. Where, as you can imagine, we're in the review period for community boards, borough boards, and the borough president. So we've been reaching out and coming to you guys today to do the outreach for that. So that's the presentation. Happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions?
About when do you plan on completing the process? You show us where you are.
Also down, so.
Do you have an estimated date?
Yeah, so I think it's a public hearing.
Can we go back to the last slide?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
And actually, I forgot to mention, I introduced Barry Dinnerstein, who's also here from our central division, from our housing and economic infrastructure planning, who's actually deputy director of that division and overseeing the citywide effort and monitoring the reviews by all these plan committee boards.
Yeah, so there's a public hearing I think scheduled. I don't know, it's a bit.
So we anticipate the City Planning Commission will have a public hearing on July 25th. This is a text amendment, so the Planning Commission has no clock. It's not like the traditional ULURP. But we're sort of thinking that the commission will deal with this in September, vote it out, and it would get to the City Council October and November for adoption.
Oh, Joe, did you?
I
Okay.
just wanted to
Oh,
just
go ahead.
a couple of comments. Our board did not vote on this yet, so, we obviously can't do anything but abstain on the vote tonight, but I just wanted to inform the Borough Board that our land use committee was absolutely against it. It provides real development hardships. The parking requirements for Staten Island are totally inadequate. And, it's nice for Manhattan. This was designed for Manhattan or Brooklyn. I don't think that they even looked at Staten Island. You look at the bottle pictures, they're all somewhere else. So our land use committee felt very, very strongly that this is not something that we could support. And that's the recommendation they're going to make to the full board on Tuesday.
Do you want to respond to that one?
No, I'm waiting for, I was going to note the fact that, one, I think the committee board can obviously choose to reflect what Joe just said, the fact that, well, it may be good for other boroughs and maybe it's appropriate, but you have the option to make a recommendation to approve but exempt, but make a recommendation to exempt the North Shore Community Board 1, if that's the route you choose to go, as opposed to simply just denying it, because I think there are a lot of issues, as James is going through, that there are citywide concerns that could be addressed through this special permit. I was also noting the fact that concerns about the parking requirements themselves is that by having the special permit process in place would mean that these hotels, if there is a hotel development proposed in the M1 on the North Shore.
But they're really inadequate, Leonard. The only way you could even get close to getting at them is in a ULURP of a particular site that you would hope that the commission would agree to deny an application if the community board or the borough president or the council thought the parking was inadequate. But with this document, you're really rolling the dice. It's just absolutely inadequate. Does not reflect the needs of Staten Island.
Well, I also note the fact that if a hotel wants to be built in the M1 district today on the North Shore, they can do it as of right, and just provide the parking that is required for zoning, and that's it, and get their building and build it. Should this special permit be adopted, it would mean that developer would have to come in and have a conversation with us, be able to demonstrate that the parking is adequate despite the requirements of what the M1 might actually have. You know, is the parking appropriate for that particular site and that location, and have that be able to demonstrate not just to us, but to the community board, the borough president, and city council. So it does give that, provide some teeth for all the folks at this table to be able to say A or nay on a proposal, as opposed to simply letting those projects go through as of right without any public review.
Well, that may be your view from your side of the table. But our view from this side of the table and dealing with the commission and the planning office and history and our geography and development is that this is not something that's good for Staten Island. At least not for Board 1. That's the land use committee's.
Understood.
The full board has not voted on it yet. They'll do that Tuesday night.
Understood. And that's the perspective the board can take, and its recommendation, the commission will take into advisement as it moves forward, and as will city council take into under advisement. But I simply note the fact, the alternative is the fact that these hotels would still be built as they are today in M1 without any input from any of the folks at the table.
Bob?
Yeah, so to add to what Len said, one thing that we want to make sure we are aware of, the special permit will give way more teeth than the as-of-right alternative to file the application. So what it ultimately comes down to is someone looking to do a hotel today can do it, follow the existing guidelines, and obtain an approval to construct the hotel. Someone looking to do the hotel through the special permit process can still go through the process, get through the commission, and, you know, the relief valve and the safety valve for the community through the special permit is your council member. So it is the council member who can represent ultimately what the community wants to see by addressing the special permit even after the city planning commission votes on it. That can't be done through the as-of-right process. So by not having the special permit, you sort of remove the council member's oversight, which in most instances is never a good thing for a community. So I just think it's important that we keep all of that sort of in perspective when we talk about special permit versus no special permit. It just basically means taking the council member out of the process after the city planning commission, which is always of value to the community.
Do you have any questions?
Jerry, go ahead.
So from your presentation, our concern, as you well know, noise, traffic, parking, pollution, pedestrian issue, now you have them all listed there. Is it your belief or presentation that by having a special permit, you have more control over addressing these issues than as of right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly to Bob's point too. It would give the commission the ability to review that and hear from them through the public review process, get the insight from the community, and actually make a decision on whether or not this development is appropriate based upon the findings that I mentioned before. Some of them include traffic and pedestrian, vehicle and pedestrian traffic, and also
And the character of the community that you're putting it in and so on would all be more of oversight than just as of
otherwise, you could just build it today.
like the one that's built next to the Outer Bridge Crossing, they just built the hotel.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of statistics up there about tourism and up and down and so on. Have you looked at whether, see, we don't see it this way, but maybe, do you see that there's a need in those areas that you're talking about in Community Board 3 to have, that there's a market to build these hotels there?
In Community Board 3.
So just to explain what the hotel people will say, there is a local market. You know, what their business, particularly in sort of the neighborhood, like on Staten Island, is serving the residents. And so, as they explained it, people live in a neighborhood, and they have family, they have friends, and life events happen. You know, a baby is born, kids graduate, someone gets sick, someone dies, and family, friends want to come and visit. And sometimes they can stay with the family, but other times they'd rather have their own. And so a very large part of the business is basically just serving neighbors in the surrounding community. And Staten Island is obviously a very big place. A lot of people have relatively small living accommodations, can't really accommodate a lot of family and guests. And so that's the business. And that's why these facilities sort of exist. And we sort of wonder, well, who would come to visit? A lot of their business are just serving visitors to Staten Island.
That may be true, but it belies the theme that you stressed in this presentation, that you're doing this because of the tremendous tourism in New York City. So, I mean.
Maybe I think we should talk about where we are out in the.
He asked him a specific
I asked
question about a
specifically
specific
out in
board.
Community Board 3. and-
Yeah, well, you know, it's.
Yeah. It'd be a little different next to the wheel that'll
You
let
gotta
me.
create it for everything. There you
Right.
go.
Just another question. Just, this is my curiosity or ignorance, whichever way you want to. You mentioned a transient hotel. What is a transient hotel? Are all hotels transient hotels? I mean, you made reference to it in your presentation.
Yeah, transient hotel is actually a defined term in zoning, I think.
Yeah,
And that's-
there are actually apartment hotels, which are basically hotels, generally they exist in Manhattan, where it was sort of a situation where people lived in a room and had like room service and have like services, people would come in and maid service. And it's kind of old fashioned, but it still does exist in some places.
These are long-term residents who
Long-term residents.
choose to live in a hotel with those kind of services.
Yes. Not so much additional as that.
That's why I asked the definition.
Anything else?
That's my question.
Okay, any, well, go
There were
ahead.
some interesting stats. You had said 30% of the hotels being constructed are in M1 districts.
Yes.
So that tells me 70% are in M1 districts.
Right.
And then you said 13% of the existing hotels are in M1 districts. Do those stats change when we talk about the borough of Staten Island only? Do those numbers, 30%, 13% change to 90% and 40%? Do we know?
It's a good question. We could potentially follow up on that. I think the stats is on a citywide basis.
Right.
This is the amount of change in hotel supply on Staten Island from 2007 to 2017.
I mean, maybe none of them are in M1, so maybe only one is.
Well, there are.
Look on the map where they exist today.
Yeah. So all the ones indicated here are in. I know they're not in M1s, but yeah, I don't think there's an overlay of it. But these are M1s. These are also M1s. I'm pretty sure these are M1s in St. George. The rest of them are commercial districts.
I mean, I think that would be a good stat to at least have on hand.
Yeah, good.
So how many hotels in Staten Island or what their zoning districts are?
Just-
Yeah.
You know, I think that'd be broken down into community district also, so
Right.
so you get an idea of where each of those boards stand.
All the larger hotels, I think, on the island are pretty much in M1 districts, as well as the smaller hotels that exist on the island.
I just thought of another question. The way the mines work out in Community Board 3, the concern that some people had was that if you put these controls in an M1 district, why would someone seek to build a hotel in an M1 district where he has to get a permit when he can just go to a C, a commercial district? And that may drastically change the nature of Highland Boulevard or other areas on the island, because why go through this process which you've created, which would in fact have control over noise, parking, et cetera, Well, I just go into a commercial district as of right and build a hotel.
It's a development.
So they said, why don't you have permits for C1? Commercial districts. So then it's an even playing field that if someone's going to want to build a hotel on Staten Island, and one size may not fit all for the other boroughs, But if they're gonna seek to build on Staten Island, why not have the control of that from the north shore to the south shore, east to west? You wanna build a hotel, you gotta get a permit. And that would keep the character of, from New Dorp to Bay Street to Tottenville, because everyone would then have to get a permit.
I think part of the issue.
I think they raised that at your.
They did raise it. I think the issue between the M1s, just like speaking theoretically, not necessarily
Right.
locationally, but the difference between the M1s and the commercial districts, meaning the commercial districts are locations where it's appropriate to have hotels citywide, as opposed to the M1 districts where we're finding in many instances, there are conflicts between the industrial character of a manufacturing zone and a hotel coming in where you might have tourists or families or residents coming in, that's not necessarily a good connection between the two. And that's what we're trying to address specifically with this text amendment, versus the fact that citywide, we do want to make sure that we're getting hotels in the appropriate locations to address tourist needs, to address residential needs where you might have transportation connections better, like, Highland Boulevard or the Zetland Mall. Those might be better places to have a hotel that works better with what's actually been developed in those surrounding areas. And trying to encourage those ones versus having a special permit that might actually make it more difficult to build in those areas.
So are we not looking to, encroach in M1 zones and keep the M1s for the purpose of M1s and not have them? Is it cheaper to build a hotel in an M1 than it is in a commercial area, so therefore we don't want to encroach
Well,
for the use of an M1?
right, the idea being also that you want to make sure we're encouraging industrial jobs in manufacturing zones.
But I
That was
also
the goal of the mayor.
The issue in M1 districts is that we've seen a lot of conflicts where hotels have been built on blocks where there are active businesses. And in some cases, you sort of look at where they located a hotel and you sort of say, what were they thinking? Because, they're like
We
boxes
say that,
on
we
the
say
street.
that a lot, actually.
Yeah, exactly. There were boxes on the street, and how are people going to get in and out? It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And so our thinking here is not necessarily to ban them, but to individually look at the location of where the hotel is being proposed and say, well, yeah, this makes sense. This is a perfectly fine location. Okay, proceed. Or to say, well, wait a second, there are neighbors here. How is this going to work? How are you going to get in and out? You're going to create traffic problems, what have you. Maybe not such a good idea. We did look at the question of, are we going to pull people out of the M1 districts, or are they going to go to the commercial areas instead? And we concluded, yes, that is possible that would happen. But at the same time, what's happened is that there's been like this explosion in hotel development in the city, not so much on Staten Island, but around the entire city. There's a lot of question about how many more hotel rooms the city can actively support. So while we do think there could be some level of relocation of hotels that might have gone to M1 to commercial, we don't think that's particularly significant, just because we don't really think going forward there's going to be a huge number of hotels developed in the city, because there's been, like the last 10 years, been this unanticipated growth in hotels, and the developers, the industry people we've talked to have all sort of said that's kind of coming to an end. We're at a point where the market is really getting saturated. We don't think we're going to see lots of new hotels.
Just for a point of clarification, when you create these text amendments, you can't differentiate one borough from the other four? It has to be uniform for all 5 boroughs?
We try and do a citywide perspective, but that's obviously part of the public review process and what we hear back from both review boards and the city council about where it finally gets adopted. I think that's one reason why I think review board 2, while they supported this text amendment, they requested it be modified to exempt the corporate park.
And that is actually in the Borough Board resolution as well.
Hotels currently, anything that they believe is appropriate to have hotels in the future in the corporate park.
Because you made reference to the fact that tourists, when they're coming to this hotel, should be in an environment that's appropriate for them. Well, I'm saying if they move into a commercial district and build a hotel, the environment should be appropriate for the people who are living around them. and not looking at the tourists, but the other side, because there's two sides to it.
Right.
So I think you should consider looking at Staten Island is different, and certainly Community Board 3 is different as far as the impact it may have on why go through this process in M1, let me go to C and build a hotel.
Which, if you think about it, might be something, one, as we're noting, that there is a comparative advantage for hotels to build in the M1s right now over manufacturing. It's maybe easier and maybe cheaper land to actually build. It's not that somebody's going to jump into a commercial district, because they're going to have to they're not going to have that same advantage in the commercial district. There's obviously retail and other, they're going to have to compete to actually find a site that's large enough in those districts and actually do it right. So it's not like we're going to see a giant, swing to commercial districts. But it's also a matter that probably those commercial districts are more centrally located, the neighborhoods around them, and that might be the location where I've got a wedding to go to or a family event that I might want to have my, in-laws or relatives staying nearby my house and being able to walk outside and walk down and shop at something versus being out in a manufacturing district.
I mean, and with regard to Staten Island, obviously, there's a lot more vacant manufacturing land than there is commercial land on Staten Island, so, I mean, that's taking that into account specifically to Staten Island. We got a whole large, does any of the electeds have anything?
Are we taking the Borough Board vote tonight?
We were planning to, yes.
Just saying they're not ready.
No, don't speak for me. Just because I had a lot of questions, don't say that I'm not ready.
Well, he's not ready.
That's fair. That's fair. I did ask all the questions, but it doesn't mean I'm not ready.
They can abstain. We could discuss it. Is everybody else?
I have the vote, but I don't have any questions.
Okay. Do you have any concerns about taking the vote or anything? Chris? No? All right, so I think we should bring it for a vote. There's no other, Community Board 1 has the opportunity to abstain if they'd like to, but I think everybody else is ready to move forward, so,
That would be our vote.
okay, so we do have a resolution in the packet that everybody can take a look at. And I will read into the minutes. Whereas the New York City Department of City Planning, DCP, is tasked with the conduct of urban planning within the borough of Staten Island and the city of New York, whereas DCP has determined that the establishment of a special permit under the jurisdiction of the City Planning Commission, CPC, for new hotels, motels, tourist cabins, and botels in light manufacturing, also known as M1 districts, citywide, it is in the best interest of the borough of Staten Island and the city of New York and will help to limit density and preserve the general character of the surrounding areas. Whereas a special permit is a discretionary action by the CPC, subject in the New York City Uniform Land Use Review process, also known as ULURP, which may modify use regulations if certain conditions specified in the zoning resolution are met. The public review process includes Community Board, Borough President, and CPC review. The City Council may elect to review a special permit application, and mayoral review is also optional. Whereas there are few motels, tourist cabins, or botels in New York City, the term hotel is used here to refer to all of these transient accommodations. DCP should ensure that sufficient opportunities for industrial, commercial, and institutional growth remain and believes it would be beneficial to revisit the zoning framework for M1 districts. Whereas, by establishing a new CPC special permit, DCP proposes a case-by-case, site-specific review process to ensure that hotel development occurs only on appropriate sites, based on reasonable consideration responding whether a hotel presents the potential for conflicts with the surrounding uses and how well a hotel reflects the general character of the surrounding area. A CPC special permit would allow for consideration of appropriateness of hotel development in both the actively light industrial areas where hotels and existing uses are potentially incompatible, and the more mixed uses within the M1 districts, where the city may want to direct growth towards various other employment sectors. A CPC special permit would also still allow for hotels to serve the needs of the tourism industry where appropriate. Whereas existing legal hotels located within M1 districts on the date of adoption of the proposed zoning text amendment would be considered a conforming use, with the exception of the existing and future hotels and botels proposed at the South Avenue Corporate Park, situated on the Staten Island Industrial Park campus. Any other proposed hotel enlargements or extensions within Borough M1 districts would be permitted so long as they do not exceed 20% of the existing floor area and the zoning lot is not enlarged. Any enlargement or extension that does exceed 20% would require the proposed special permit. Additionally, hotel developments with a permit issued by the Department of Buildings before the referral date of the proposed action would be permitted to commence and/or continue approved construction as long as construction complies with approved plans, is completed and issued a permanent certificate of occupancy by the Department of Buildings within 3 years of the date of adoption of the proposed zoning text amendment. Whereas, the Borough Board of the Borough of Staten Island supports the vesting of existing and future hotel uses situated on the South Avenue Corporate Park and deems it appropriate to exempt the Staten Island Industrial Park campus from the new special permit requirements, and whereas, the Borough Board of the Borough of Staten Island agrees that creating a special permit under the jurisdiction of the CPC for new hotels, motels, tourist cabins, and botels in light manufacturing M1 districts outside of the Staten Island Industrial Park campus is in the best interest of the Borough of Staten Island and the City of New York. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to the New York City Public Review Process, ULURP, and the New York City Charter, the Borough Board of the Borough of Staten Island hereby supports DCP application number NJ 80349ZRY to establish a new special permit under the jurisdiction of the City Planning Commission for new hotels, motels, tourist cabins, and botels in light manufacturing M1 districts citywide in the City of New York and the outside the Staten Island Park campus in the Borough of Staten Island Community Districts 1, 2, and 3. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, okay. Any objections?
One extension.
And one abstentions is next. Okay. So the ayes have it. It's 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention. Thank you. Anything else, gentlemen?
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're just going to continue on for just a few quick minutes with our, just our regular housekeeping agenda. So attendance, we have a full board in attendance. The acceptance of minutes, I skipped over them because we had a long agenda. So if everybody can just look in their packets quickly.
Move to accept.
Okay, thank you. Second. Okay, we did not have any correspondence. Does anybody have any old business to bring up before the board? Any new business? Motion to adjourn.
But before you do that, aren't we talk about a date for the July?
So what I was gonna
Well, that's not part of this meeting.
I was just really gonna send out like an email to everybody
Not a
to get your
problem. I
feedback
just thought
for
maybe
that.
I thought maybe you
figured,
forgot.
no, I did not forget. I just figured it would be easier to send out an email when everybody has calendars in front of them, because I figured everybody may not have them. Okay, so motion to adjourn? Okay. Thank you.